Good evening, employees. I want to throw a number at you. 60%. Do you think you'd have a job if you only showed up 60% of the time? Probably not. At least not working for me. Now, according to the website fairvote.org, only 60% of American citizens actually vote for the president. That's insane, considering the history that this country has. It was started by people who were trying to get away from tyrants. Well, a bunch of farmers who didn't want to pay taxes. But that's a different story. Now, if you take a look at the major issues that we have in our country today, you want to do anything about it, then the only way to do that is to vote. If you understand that voting is the only effective way to change anything, it's the only way that your voice can be heard. If you look at what Webster's dictionary says, it defines it defines vote as a token by which a choice is expressed as a ballot. It is also says that something granted by the will of the majority. Now, if only 60% of the people in our country are voting, then that truly isn't the will of the majority. The simple solution to this is that we have to go out, register, and vote. Now, I can understand that voting can be a painful process. Long lines at the polls. Sometimes you get sent to the wrong polling place. Sometimes you don't have any idea where your district is, and it can be difficult to navigate. But you must vote. Now, registering to vote, not that hard. 39 states, it can actually be done online according to USA.gov. And you even have the option usually at DMV. And it in most states can be done by mail. So I know we have employees all over the country. But what I'm saying to you is there is no excuse not to vote. Now, if you want to really truly see any change, a lot of people talk about the electoral college being outdated and the redistricting of and manipulating of boundaries to favor a party or class. That's known as gerrymandering. You'll never be able to do anything about it unless you vote. Now, if you go to USA.gov, it gives you a pretty good explanation of some of the amendments that are designed to protect your right to vote. Now, you have the 14th Amendment, which protects the right of any citizen, born or naturalized, to have inalienable rights, one of which is, guess what, to vote. The 15th Amendment granted the right to vote to blacks. The 19th Amendment granted the right to vote to women. And then we also have amendments that made poll taxes illegal and also lowered the voting age to age 18 so that we could hear from more citizens about who their choice to run our country and represent us in different levels of politics. The truth of the matter is, if you really truly, if you really truly want to do anything about the system instead of just complaining, you have to go out and vote. Now, think about this. 5 times in the history of our country, the People's Choice, the popular vote winner, actually lost the election. In the year 2000, I had a roommate. His name was Mike Snyder, and I asked him if he was registered to vote, and he said he was. So we had this conversation, and he said that he wouldn't vote because his vote didn't matter anyway. So the conversation, I talked about some of the things that my mom had mentioned, how my grandmother marched on Washington with Dr. Martin Luther King, and how people had died for that right, and how people in other countries wish they could have that right. And, he said, what's the difference? My vote isn't going to matter anyway. And ironically enough, that was the election where Al Gore actually won the popular vote by less than 0.5%, but lost the electoral college to George Bush by 5 votes, 271 to 265. Now, it was tied up in courts and litigation, but ultimately he conceded. And could you imagine if every single person every citizen, every person that had the right to vote actually voted, not just the 60% that we get on average? And this is something that's been going on in our country for a long time. If you look at the fairvote.org website, it will show you from 1789 to 2018, the only period where we had over 70% of our residents of America actually vote was from the 1830s to about the turn of the 20th century, where it hovered somewhere between 70 and 80%. Now, the bottom line is this: all I'm asking you to do is go out and vote. It is your inalienable right. It is your only way to make sure that your voice is heard. It's just, I'm very passionate about it because, again, my family, it was always something that we were taught to do because of, the civil rights struggle and the fact that Mickey Schwerner and some others that were doing voter registration drives in the South, they lost their lives. And it's just it's very near and dear to my heart. And I hear people complain. So to encourage you to vote, I will pay you for any time related to your voter registration and registering and voting. And I'll also provide a meal for you and your family. Thank you. Please vote. It is important. Have your say in how our country runs.